I didn't wake up one day and decide to run an agency. I was pushed there by hiring mistakes and honestly a struggle within our business model. In this video, I share 5 lessons with you that change how I think about leadership and why the agency model solves most hiring pain points. So I want to talk about 5 hiring mistakes that I made that completely changed how I build teams. Mistake 1. I hired before the role was clearly defined. I knew that I needed somebody to help out with social media, but I didn't clearly define what that meant. Besides the fact that it was very obvious. Be on social media, create content. But what needed to happen in that? I never laid groundwork for what that entailed exactly, the full structure behind that. Did that mean they were going to be doing video editing? Did that mean that they were going to be looking at strategy? Were they going to come up with a posting schedule? Were they only going to post? What were the things that they needed to do, and what did success look like for them, and how quickly should they turn things around? These were things that I didn't put in place when I first started hiring a social media manager, and there were several other roles that were that way, that I just knew I needed somebody. I was too busy. Let me just hire somebody to fill in this gap. And because I just hired before I had the structure, I was not able to fulfill that gap the way that I thought I would, and we had to hire multiple people. Not to mention, I still got stuck doing all the work anyways because I had to look over their shoulder and make sure everything was right, because they didn't know what was right, what was wrong, what was good, what was acceptable. They just did what they thought was best, which wasn't what I want it done, but I never clearly explained that. So that's mistake 1. Mistake number 2, I expected ownership without giving structure. Now this is different than having a clearly defined role, what task you're supposed to be doing, what you're in charge of, stuff like that. This is more the structure of what your role is rather than just the task, the things that you're going to accomplish. And what does that structure look like? And what is the hierarchy as well behind who's in charge, who's responsible, who's accountable, and everything like that. Going back with our social media example, behind who's in charge, who's responsible, who's accountable, and everything like that. Going back with our social media example, I simply just said, hey, go ahead and post content. Well, what is our goal here? I didn't put any of that in place. How are you going to own this if you don't know what our goal is? How are you going to be able to track this and give measurable actions after we've posted for a week or a month of content for them to be able to tell me what we need to do next, what they need from me, what they can do to make things better? I didn't set that up, and I didn't give them the structure and guidance to start so they could actually own that process, because the whole time they're just trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure me out. They're trying to figure out what success looks like, and they were stuck in this rat race. And so I wanted them just to own the process without actually even giving them some kind of structure or process for them to even follow. Mistake number 3, I stayed the bottleneck while asking for help. So I hired somebody to take work off my plate, but I didn't explain what all that work was. It really goes back to having a clearly defined role and the structure in place, but I just basically hired somebody, and then every single thing they did, I would check on it. Now, I still do this with new hires for a little bit, because obviously they're not going to come in day 1 and be able to do everything. I do want to spot check and things like that. But the problem was that I just stayed there, and I never pulled myself out because I felt like they were not getting it to 100% of where I was at first. But the thing is, nobody ever is going to do something exactly like you. It doesn't matter how much you train them, how much you look over their shoulder, they're never going to do that. But that was one of my hiring mistakes, that I just kept myself involved in it too much, because I also felt like if I pull out too much and I don't know what's going on in social media, in the back office, where handling clients and onboarding and recruiting, that I'm going to lose touch and I'm not going to be able to run a business, and all of a sudden everybody's just going to start deciding to go out and do their own thing. But when I let myself out of that, I realized that people were more empowered. There was more structure there, and I became less of a bottleneck. There's still, of course, always things that were going to be a bottleneck on some way, shape, or form, but I was able to remove myself out of those things when I finally realized that it was just a mental block that made me stay in all these day-to-day activities, that I hired somebody else to handle those things. Mistake number 4, I blamed the people that we hired, because I hired them to be the expert to take care of these things, but I didn't have systems in place, or the system I had in place, I didn't allow them to actually work out because I would intervene all the time and I would check in and ask about all sorts of stuff. You name it. You've been there as a business owner. You're definitely worried, and understandably, it's your business, it's your baby. But if you don't allow the system that you have in place to run, to be able to do the job, to allow that person to be empowered, how do you expect them to be successful? And so I really had to step back and allow that system to do the work and stop blaming people, because the common thing was myself and the system when the people that we hired that ended up not working out didn't work out. After a time or two of having the same things happen, I had to realize that it wasn't them, it was me and the systems that we had in place. And so I had to take a look at those systems. So if you're struggling with people and maybe you've had a turnover in the same job over and over and over again, the common thing is you and your systems. It's not the people you're hiring. Is not everybody is bad out there. It's going to work, but you need to check your system. And mistake number 5 on hiring is that I assumed all the leaders should be able to manage things themselves. Rather than checking in and coaching them up and giving them guidance, I just assumed that, well, they've been doing pretty good as an individual performer, and I think they can step up into this leadership role. And I wasn't coaching them at first. I just expected that they would be able to take care of it and take care of the other people. And they learned from me doing the leadership that I did to them and leading them by giving them vision and somewhat of a direction, everything, and maybe doing some check-ins. I thought they would just automatically be able to do that. But that wasn't the case. I had to coach up. I had to remind them of things and check in and see how are things going for them, but also for the people that they were now leading. And at the end of the day, every one of those mistakes created friction, and every one of them pointed to the same conclusion. Most business owners don't need more people. They need better structure and shared accountability. And that's why we shifted from a VA placement model to an agency model. Instead of dropping someone into chaos, we deliver a system with people already operating inside it. The owner leads the business, the agency runs the process. That shift removes guesswork and dramatically lowers risk for you in the business. If you've been burned by hiring before, you're not broken, you were just missing structure. Subscribe and we'll walk through this together.